Friedrich Nietzsche warned, "No price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself." But what if you spend your life paying that price, not to own yourself, but to be owned by the approval of others? From childhood, you were told that your worth comes from what you give, that real men protect, real men provide, real men sacrifice, and you believed it, because the world rewards the hero, the man who bleeds for others, the man who saves without asking for anything in return. But no one told you that the hero often becomes a prisoner of his own need to be needed. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." You thought saving others would save you, but every rescue, every sacrifice, only deepened the chains around your own soul. Because the hero complex isn't about courage. It's about fear. The fear that if you stop saving others, you'll have to face yourself. Face the parts of you that feel unworthy without applause. Face the emptiness you've been trying to fill with praise. And so you keep giving. You keep bleeding. You keep burning at both ends. Not because you're selfless, but because you're terrified of what you'll see in the silence if you stop. You build your identity around their needs. You build your value around their crises. But here's the tragedy. The more you save, the more invisible you become to yourself. You aren't saving them. You're avoiding saving yourself. Nietzsche wrote, "He who cannot obey himself will be commanded." And in the hero complex, that's what happens. You obey the image, the role, the story, and in doing so, you surrender the very self you were meant to protect. Carl Jung warned, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of its parents." And maybe that's where it starts. You weren't just taught to be the hero. You inherited the weight of generations. The silent command that says, your value comes from sacrifice. Your worth comes from what you can endure for others. But here's the truth you were never shown. Every time you try to save someone else, you abandon yourself a little more. Because no one can save another without first saving themselves. The hero complex isn't about helping, it's about hiding. Hiding from the emptiness that waits when applause fades. Hiding from the truth that your worth was never meant to be proven through blood and sacrifice. Nietzsche wrote, "Man is not punished for his sins, but by them." And this is how the hero complex punishes you. Not through external failure, but through the slow erosion of your own identity. You keep giving because you're terrified of what's left when there's nothing left to give. And what's left is the part of you that was never allowed to simply be. The boy who learned that he was only good when he was useful. The man who now burns himself to feel needed. But here's the paradox. The more you destroy yourself to be needed, the more you teach others that your destruction is normal. You set yourself on fire and wonder why no one offers water. And maybe, deep down, you don't want them to. Because if they did, you'd have to stop. You'd have to face the silence. You'd have to face yourself. Nietzsche said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow." But what happens when your why isn't born from your soul, but shaped by the needs of others? When your reason for living becomes their emergencies, their struggles, their brokenness. You start chasing fires not because the world needs saving, but because you need to feel like a savior. You crave the moment where their chaos gives you purpose, their pain gives you direction, and soon you can't rest unless someone else is in crisis. You can't feel worthy unless someone else is broken. Carl Jung warned, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And so you run. You run into battles that aren't yours. You take on burdens that don't belong to you. You bleed for causes that never asked for your sacrifice, not because you're noble, but because the silence of your own soul terrifies you. Because if you stop, if you pause, if you let yourself just be, you'd have to face the truth that you don't know who you are without their struggle. And that's the tragedy of the hero complex. The man who fights for others so fiercely that he forgets to fight for himself. The man who builds his identity around their wounds, their weaknesses, their needs. But here's the cost. Every time you save someone else, you abandon yourself. Every time you rescue, you erase. Every time you play the hero, you lose a little more of the man beneath the armor. Nietzsche wrote, "He who cannot obey himself will be commanded." And that's what happens here. You stop leading yourself. You become led by crisis, by need, by the endless hunger for validation. And eventually, the armor you thought kept you strong becomes the prison you can't escape. You start to wonder why no one saves you, why no one sees the man who's burning. But the truth is, they're too busy watching the hero on the stage you built. They can't see your pain behind the performance you won't stop giving. And maybe deep down, you don't want them to. Because if they saw it, if they tried to help, you'd have to stop. You'd have to face the emptiness beneath the applause. You'd have to face yourself. Nietzsche wrote, "There is always some madness in love, but there is also always some reason in madness." And that's the paradox you live inside. The madness of trying to save everyone else while quietly destroying yourself. You call it loyalty. You call it duty. You call it honor. But deep down, it's fear. Fear of being unnecessary. Fear of being invisible when no one needs saving. You wrap your worth in the struggles of others. You tie your identity to their crises. And the tragedy is, you don't know how to exist without someone else's storm to calm. Carl Jung reminded us, your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. You thought the hero complex made you noble, but it made you blind. Blind to yourself, blind to the man beneath the armor, blind to the truth that you are worthy even when you are not needed. The man who builds his worth on being needed will always fear the day he is not, so he keeps giving, keeps saving, keeps burning, but no one asks him to, and no one thanks him for it, because no one sees the battle he's really fighting, the battle against his own emptiness. Nietzsche warned, the higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly. And maybe that's the final tragedy of the hero complex. You soar for them, you bleed for them, and in the end, they don't see the cost. They don't see what it takes from you because you never let them. Because the hero isn't supposed to bleed in public. But here's the question you must face. Do you save them because they need saving, or because you're afraid of saving yourself? Because the moment you stop needing to be the hero is the moment you finally meet the man behind the mask. And that, not sacrifice, is where true courage begins.